From the original movie in 1979 up to now, 2017, the Alien movie franchise has become solidified as a staple of science fiction. People often point to the original movie as being one of the pinnacles of the horror genre, with the xenomorph being maybe one of the most recognizable monsters alongside Frankenstein and Dracula. But with the most recent movies, we see longtime fans feeling more dissatisfied with the direction the movies seem to be heading. Now, I'll be honest, I only got into the Alien movies recently, starting with Prometheus and Covenant, and have since gone back to watch the original movies. Reading reviews and conversations, it got me wondering, what is it about the original movies that seems to be lacking in the newer entries? Or, to put it another way, I wanted to find out what happened to the Alien movies. Let's start with Alien. Alien is a horror movie set in a sci-fi universe. We get very minimal backstory, but we know this movie is a self-contained incident within a bigger story. The crew are basically space garbage collectors who just kinda happen to stumble onto a xenomorph and zany antics ensue. While calling them garbage collectors might be a bit reductive, one thing to note is that they're all experts in their individual fields, and they use their knowledge and skills to fight back. But in the end, it's just not enough. This is where the fear, the horror aspect comes in. Despite everything, the character still dies. This idea of trying your best, doing everything right, and still failing is perhaps one of the biggest fears a human has. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest differences between Alien and most other horror movies. Typically in horror movies, you have a group of regular people, like a group of high school teens who are staying at a summer home in the woods or something, and they all run around aimlessly until the monster catches them. But in Alien, you have people who are trained at a job and in theory do that job well, and still get caught by the monster. It asks the question, what if you're just not good enough to survive? Now, Aliens, for all intents and purposes, is kind of a revenge story. A sci-fi action movie where Ripley gets to avenge her crewmates from the original movie. From the audience's perspective, assuming they saw the first movie, we get to watch trained, highly efficient soldiers fight back against the supposedly invincible xenomorphs. Again, we know there's a much larger, more complex universe going on around the characters, but the movie itself is a self-contained adventure. And here's where the line gets drawn, because every movie after Aliens, to varying degrees, has been shifting away from the original movie's vision of science fiction. What the movies are fundamentally has changed. You see, in 1953, Isaac Asimov, who's regarded as one of the greatest sci-fi writers of all time, published an article where he laid out the three types of science fiction: gadget, adventure, and social. Gadget science fiction is when the story is about the thing itself, the invention, the alien, the robot, whatever, and how it came to be. Adventure science fiction is where this so-called gadget is used as the main plot device or backdrop or MacGuffin of the story. Social science fiction, as the name suggests, tells us how this gadget affects our lives. Going back for a second, the original Alien movie was wholeheartedly an adventure sci-fi movie coated in a horror shell. There's an alien shrouded in mystery and conspiracy, and our heroes have to either kill it or be killed themselves. Aliens is even more so, dropping a lot of the horror aspect of the original in favor of a much more boisterous sci-fi action movie. Even with this though, the specific science fiction genre hasn't changed. Both are firmly adventure science fiction. After the last several movies though, the Alien franchise has tried to shift away from the adventure sci-fi genre and into both the gadget and social science fiction genres at the same time, while also trying to keep one toe in the adventure sci-fi kiddie pool. With the most recent movies, the android David has become the main focus. Where did he come from? How was he created? Things like this. Here's where we see the movies start to shift over into gadget sci-fi. But at the same time, the movies are also trying to be social science fiction. They're asking us questions like, what is free will? What does it mean to have a creator? What is creation? How does the existence of a fully aware AI affect us as people? Even though the movies are still called Alien, the actual alien itself has taken a backseat to the philosophical ponderings of David the android. When the alien does show up, it's less adventure sci-fi, and again, it's more gadget sci-fi. The movies are trying to show us how the alien came to be, where did it come from, how does it work, this type of stuff. Where the original movie just put us into a story where aliens and androids were pieces of a much larger puzzle, now the aliens and androids have more or less become the story. In Alien Covenant, for example, the fact that a crew of ragtag space colonizers even find David really doesn't mean much to the story. Except in the end when David takes hold of the ship and all the sleeping passengers. The entire 2-hour movie accomplishes very little in relation to the broad story the newer movies seem to be trying to tell. David has been trying to create aliens, but he runs out of subjects. This ship happens to come along, and they provide him with more humans to test on. That's more or less it. Of course, as more movies come out, this may change. Maybe the story of Alien Covenant is more important than it seems, but that's one of the downsides of shifting movies over from complete stories into parts of an anthology. We're not really sure where it's going or how to interpret the characters' actions or motivations, because they're no longer self-contained but now spread out over past, present, and future titles. But that aside, to go back to my original point, the Alien franchise has moved away from adventure sci-fi into gadget and social sci-fi. The movies aren't really about people having an adventure with or against aliens and androids, but now they're more about the fact that aliens and androids exist and what that means philosophically and theologically speaking. Whether these movies have changed for the worse or not is completely up to your interpretation, but hopefully it makes a little more sense now why the newer Alien movies just feel so different.